Welcome everybody who's here, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a wonderful presentation and conversation with Comptroller and candidate to Governor Peter Franchot. And this session, so everybody knows, will be recorded and it will be posted on our social media later on for you to rewatch and for those who were unable to join us this afternoon. So we're very happy to have Peter Franchot with us. I'm gonna let Carmen Larson, President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, introduce our guest speaker today. And without any further ado, Carmen, floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Peter Franchot and Comptroller Franchot, for joining us today. I think the last time I saw you was when we were talking about the 270-495 issue that this chamber was in support of. I wanted to let you know that many people have responded that they were going to attend, and then they had a rough time with the timing of it. So we're recording it so they can have I think, but we have received some questions that I've been asked to put to you after you do your presentation. So for those of you who are here, I would like people to introduce themselves so that Comptroller Franchot knows who's who. And I'm going to start with maybe Kimberly Driggs, because she was a course mate of mine. So Kim, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Kimberly Driggs. I'm the owner of D2 LLC. We're a site work construction company. We're based here in Rockville, Maryland, and was interested in finding out a little bit more about what Peter Franchot has in mind for issues that he'll be addressing, and just here to learn about just issues that are happening currently.
Okay, thank you. Carmen Rojas?
Yes, hi, it's Carmen Rojas from the Hispanic Business
okay, they can't hear you, right? They can't hear you? Can you hear her or no?
Carmen, if you can get closer to your microphone.
Okay, now it's better. Yeah, it's Carmen Rojas from the Hispanic Business Foundation of Maryland. This foundation is from the chamber, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I am the executive director of the foundation.
Okay, thank you. And so Charles Hopkins, could you introduce yourself? Maybe he's not ready yet. Okay, we'll get back to you. Ernesto Chanona.
Hello, it's a pleasure to see you again, Comptroller Franchot. I'm Ernesto Chanona. I'm Director of Business Development in a life sciences firm called CSSI. We help early stage biotechnology companies, drug companies, medical devices, obtain regulatory approval and investment to help those technologies come to market, and help international biotechnology companies land here in Maryland. Economic development is near and dear to my heart. I was previously at the Maryland Department of Commerce, spearheading their life sciences efforts. I'm also an adjunct professor at the Johns Hopkins Center for Biotechnology, and a recent member of this wonderful board. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Okay, and Adriana Lee, do you want to introduce yourself? Or so, yeah.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Carmen. Thank you, Mauricio, for this meeting. Yes, I'm Adriana Lee. I'm in the Hispanic Affairs Outreach Manager for the Office of the Comptroller of Maryland. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Charles Hopkins, are you available to introduce yourself?
Apparently his audio is not working very well.
Yeah, it says Charles Hopkins, President and CEO, RMD Holdings LLC, an MBE certified contractor. He apologizes that his audio is not working. But he is happy to be here. Thank you. And then I'm going to introduce myself briefly. My name is Carmen Larson. I'm the president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce from Montgomery County. I'm chair of the board. My real job is president and CEO of Aquas Incorporated. It's a technology and engineering firm based in Maryland State in Montgomery County. I've been running this business for over 30 years, and I have been involved with the Hispanic Chamber since about 15 years ago. Very passionate about small business and the state of Maryland, where I have lived for most of my life. Thank you. And we're going to. I wanted to tell you, those of you, I think everybody knows, but Peter has been. Can I call you Peter? Is that okay? Okay. So the Honorable Peter, the Honorable Peter Franchot was elected Maryland's 33rd Comptroller. And I want to say this because it was in November of 2006. So he's been our Comptroller for quite a while. And so he was sworn in on January 22nd, 2007, and was reelected with over 1 million votes in 2010 and 2014. He's been an independent voice and fiscal watchdog for the taxpayers of Maryland, serving on the 3-member board of Public Works. He approves billions of dollars in state contracts each year. I'm looking forward to get a small share of that soon. Comptroller Franchot has worked tirelessly to keep Maryland competitive in the knowledge-based economy, assisting working families and protecting the state's natural resources. Comptroller Franchot attended Amherst College and Northeastern School of Law. Is that Amherst College in Massachusetts? Where's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
From 1968 to 1970, Comptroller Franchot served in the United States Army. He is married to Ann Maher.
Mar, it's pronounced, but that's fine.
Mar.
41 years we've been married.
41 years, congratulations.
My proudest accomplishment.
That is very nice. He is an attorney and she is an attorney, and they have 2 daughters, 2 children. I'm sorry, a boy and a girl. I guess they're big people now, Abigail and Nick, and they have 3 grandchildren. So thank you, Comptroller Franchot, for agreeing to meet with us. And we're certainly making sure that our recording is going to have a very broad distribution for those folks who weren't able to attend.
No, that's fine. I'm delighted to be with you, Carmen.
Yes, and the good news is that there were 28 registrations in this call. That actually thought that they were going to be joining. So there is a fair amount of interest in knowing what you have to say. So I wanted to welcome you and go ahead, and we'd like to hear from you. And
great. This is and
questions. Yes,
Carmen, thank you, and thank everybody on the call. And this is a government call to update folks on how the tax season is going and take questions. I appreciate it. I love the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Montgomery County because, everybody in politics kind of assumes people think alike. They don't. And I just want to congratulate the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for being in favor of, I think someone mentioned that you were in favor of the widening of the repair of the American Legion Bridge. I mean, how can we be a great state if we have just indescribable traffic congestion on 495 and 270 in the American Legion Bridge? I mean, we're going to have our clocks cleaned by Virginia if we don't watch it. So I think this is a very, it's not without controversy, but it's a very good project, and hope to see it through. It's running into some, once again, frivolous litigation is once again rearing its head. Same thing that tied up the Purple Line, which is a mass transit line I've championed for decades, held up by well-meaning, well-intentioned, not in my backyard environmentalists. And as a result, the state had to pay an extra $200 million because it got delayed. So I want to thank and salute the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Montgomery County for being independent thinking, like I am. Independent thinking. You've got to focus on what's good for the economy, because you know that a rising tide lifts all boats. So I just want to say, hats off to you guys. My mother always used to say that, son, the proof is in the pudding. What have you done? Well, let's see now. I am the chief tax administrator in the state of Maryland. And I'm also the chief financial officer. And last month, I reported a $6 billion surplus in state tax revenues, despite COVID. We can talk about that a little bit. But I think the proof is in the pudding. It's whether I've been a good comptroller. This is, this $6 billion one-time only surplus is something significant. And I also serve as the chairman of the board of trustees of the state's retirement system, where we have a huge portfolio for our public employees, our teachers, their pensions, $70 billion. Had a 26% rise last year, stock market. We're well on our way to being 100% funded. Once again, proof is in the pudding. Some of you are MBEs or women-owned or minority-owned businesses. I have been your champion for 16 years on the Board of Public Works, advocating to get rid of these single bid contracts that are what I call incumbent vendor protection plans, because the agency just brings one bid to us and says, we think this is a good deal. But there's no new talent. There's no new infusion of women and minority-owned businesses. So we've reduced the single bids over the last 16 years by 86% at my request. Did 3 different governors. So, and on the pension board, I forgot to mention Terra Maria, which is a program set up specifically to allow women and minority-owned investment companies to invest our state's pension fund. And we've gone from 0 money managers who are minority or women to now a huge number. And of the 70 billion that we have in our portfolio, 12 billion is managed by women and minority-owned companies. And guess what? They're outperforming the old incumbents by a lot because they're fresh talent, new energy, new people. And out of diversity, I think, comes strength. So I didn't mean to start off on that. I did want to give a quick review of the 2022 Maryland tax season. Started January 24th. I immediately made a decision to extend the 2022 Maryland income tax filing and payment deadline to Friday, July 15th. So in other words, I'm giving a 90-day interest-free, penalty-free loan of almost $1 billion, almost $2 billion in tax revenue. It comes from mostly small businesses, because that's where most of the owners get their tax liability from personal income from their small business. Anyway, this is a very significant move. There's only one state that's done this for the last 2 years and is now doing it for a 3rd year, and that's Maryland. Why am I doing it? Because small businesses have been hammered by the pandemic. You know it. Your members have. And this is a way for the state of Maryland to say, look, if you're still struggling with a small business or you're struggling with your family budgets, you can keep your money in your pocket for 3 extra months. You still have to pay your taxes come July 15th, state taxes. And we added today the first quarter estimated tax payment, which is really significant. So now come July 15th, you pay 2 quarters at once. And the key there is that people pay. But there's 600,000 taxpayers each year and business owners each year who take advantage of this. And it's an elegant source of relief during these tough economic times because not everybody needs to do it. But if you do need to do it, it's an enormous help. No application necessary, no grant papers to fill out, no need to hire a lawyer or a lobbyist to figure out how you get some kind of a little relief. You don't have to even let us know. You just delay your payment for 90 days and use that money however you want. So interest-free loan of billions of dollars. I continue to be proud of that because I think we're the most efficient and effective comptroller's office in the country. I have one mantra for all of our employees, which is respect the taxpayer, respond to the taxpayer, get results for the taxpayer. We give out our taxpayer services hotline, which is 1-800-MD-TAXES, and we insist that you will get a live, friendly, professional representative who will be able to answer your tax questions, process payments, and perform other services. Let me give you my personal cell phone. I give this to business people around the state. They love to have some contact, somebody that they can voicemail or text who's a statewide official who's concerned with finances. So my personal cell is 301 area code 332-1961. Don't call me right now because I've got the phone right here. I don't want to be distracted, but you get the drift. Yeah, you know, we want to be most of all available for our voters, for our residents, for our business people. We have 12 regional branch offices across the state, including one in Wheaton, which is people are ready and able in person to help out. We also need to provide advice as to how the federal earned income tax credit and the state earned income tax credit have been changed, how that can benefit Marylanders, particularly those, thanks to my leadership and my data that we pulled out of our Maryland taxpayer database. We're now going to allow the state EITC to include individual tax identification numbers, ITIN holders. It's mind-boggling to me that people that have paid, that we have 86,000 families, ITIN families in Maryland, they've paid over $100 million in state taxes, yet they're specifically excluded from federal and state relief. Earned income tax credit program had, previous to last session, barred anybody who didn't have a Social Security number. That's changed. Hopefully it will be made permanent. We also will prepare your Maryland state tax return free of charge at our branch offices, and you can get any kind of schedule a visit at marylandtaxes.gov. We also have a huge number of Spanish-speaking taxpayers, obviously, many of them members of your groups. We handled in 2019 70,000 phone calls, and obviously even people that speak English, the tax system is intimidating. But imagine if you're not able to be fluent in English. So we try to compensate for that. Adriana Lee has done a fabulous job in reaching out to people. We also offer all of our services bilingually to help better serve the taxpayers of Maryland. And you can try that out on our 1-800 number. And Adriana, once again, is a key link between the Comptroller's office and Hispanic media outlets, community and business organizations that are Hispanic. As the state's Comptroller and Chief Fiscal Officer, I just have a deep appreciation for your members, but all members of the Hispanic community around the state, of whom there are hundreds of thousands, because there's an entrepreneurial spirit, there's a hard work. We're going to do what we need to do in order to be financially successful. It's all important. There's a positive attitude towards the free enterprise system, towards the capitalism, towards the private sector. And I applaud your sector, because I happen to be a big fan of free enterprise. And I happen to be a big fan of capitalism, with all of its flaws. And there are obvious flaws that need to be addressed. I'm not suggesting we have a great system. It's just a much better system than any other country in the world has. And, we have the rule of law. But Latino business owner activity fell by 32% in 2 months in 2020. 32% drop. Nationally, in Maryland, it was even worse than that. We've lost 40,000 small businesses. Hopefully some of them will come back, but a lot of them are permanently closed. So we've seen in the face of the businesses that have remained a huge amount of ingenuity and nimbleness. And I believe that right now the Maryland economy is moving in the right direction, but small businesses many of them have had financial annihilation. And I happen to think each one that closes is a tragedy. I mean, many of these have been in business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So let me just close by suggesting how we should spend the $6 billion surplus. Now, this is one-time only money, so bear with me. Most of the, 2/3 of the $6 billion, $4 billion came from the federal relief that poured into the state, which was very welcome and stabilized our state's economy. 1/3 of it, $2 billion, came exclusively from our extension of the date for 3 months. The last 2 years, and now we're doing it for a third year. But since this is a windfall, I think we have to be careful how we're spending it. I think we should put $2 billion in the state's rainy day fund. That's our piggy bank. We should spend another $2 billion on one-time only infrastructure projects, roads, mass transit, healthcare facilities. We should use $1 billion immediately to distribute $2,000 economic survival payments to 437,000 low-wage earning families with children. I know who they are. I can put the money in their checking accounts within 48 hours. Legislature and the governor just has to give me the thumbs up. I made this request last year. They ended up with $500 million that they not with $500 and not $2,000 that they gave through the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a very document-rich, complicated program. But nonetheless, I additionally think that we should spend $500 million reconstructing the child care working system in Maryland. We have a, let's say, we have a system of 8,000 for-profit, largely minority and women-owned small businesses. That's what our child care sector is. We shut them down. Many of them, almost 1,000 of them have closed permanently. So I think we should put $500 million of the surplus into reconstructing our child care. And then I think the final $500 million should be used for direct financial support to hard-hit small businesses, especially those, many of them your members, I'll bet, who lack the resource to access federal and state relief. $500 million, and it should be done through the Main Street and other Main Street neighborhood groups, but also the chambers like yourself. We need to support mom and pop stores that represent the beating heart of the state's economy by providing right now, not through tax relief down the road. Right now, we need to provide checks to these small businesses that are particularly affected by the financial consequences of COVID. And it can be immediate because I've got everybody in my tax base. And I know the disproportionate effect that many of your members have suffered during the COVID crisis. We can fix that, and we should do it with that $6 billion that a large amount of which is sitting in our state's checking account right now, gathering dust. Let's blow the dust off. The big ledger, open it up, begin to write checks to small businesses, survival checks. So let me just conclude by saying I'm going to do everything in my power to assure the continued success of all of you, all of the small businesses in Maryland. And if you can work with me and help me, I would suggest that everybody should contact the legislature and make sure that they don't waste the $6 billion by plugging it into ongoing programs that then will require tax increases a year or two from now, because the money is, as I said, it's one time only. So let me stop there and turn it back to Carmen, and any questions that anybody has. And Adriana is available. Adriana, make sure you put your contact up on the screen so people can access you as far as anything that the agency may be helpful to them with.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you, Controller. Thank you, Controller Franchot. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I just have a quick question. Actually, I have several that some of are in the thing, and Mauricio also I think has some. But I'm worried that between now and when the campaign goes, and whenever that, if you get elected, you're going to look at the $6 billion. But aren't there decisions going to be made on this $6 billion fund before you get to
let's leave the politics aside. Yeah, no, that's why I was
Right.
urging you to contact your delegates and senators.
Right. Okay.
Because left to themselves, everybody's going to have a little priority here, a little priority there, and the whole thing is going to disappear down.
Right.
And my biggest fear is that it's put into the operating budget. That is a fiscal problem and should not happen, because it will make taxes have to be raised. So I would suggest, you guys are powerful. You have a lot of members, and you also have a lot of connections with other jurisdictions. And the Hispanic business community is tremendously impressive. But I think you should take some version of what I talked about as far as how this money should be spent, and lobby your delegates and senators and federal officials, because they're the ones who help get a lot of the federal relief poured into the state of into the state of Maryland, which resulted in at least 2/3 of the $6 billion.
Right.
But it's an important amount, and it shouldn't. But I wouldn't reduce it to. Everybody wants to reduce it to, hey, give me something. No, do something good for the state.
Okay. All right. So a lot, as you mentioned, a lot of businesses went out of business, or at least were tremendously hurt during the pandemic, or lost some opportunities that they otherwise would have had. We have heard about jobs tax credits and tax credits for various things. Some of them used to be there and they're gone. As I was mentioning, the R&D tax credit seems to be gone now, right? And so some other tax credits. But if I'm correct, the R&D tax credit ended in 2020, and the wine and wineries ended in 2020, and the qualified vehicles ended in 2020 as far as tax credits are concerned. But we do have tax credits for jobs, of creating jobs, and maybe we also have tax credit for community investment tax. One of the questions is, how does that work, having a credit? So do you have to be a big business where you're paying a lot of taxes to get the tax credit? What happened if you're a small business? What does a tax credit mean to us as a small business? So if I have a business that's less than 50 people, how does that, is that benefit to me, or is that just a benefit to the larger companies?
Well, let me just step back, because we're almost at the 2-year anniversary of COVID, which is disproportionately affected, many of our citizens who happen to be low wage earners or happen to live in congested areas. And we've lost 13,000 or 14,000 people who have died. We've had 1 million people infected. It continues to be a problem as far as the economy. The idea that government 2 years ago, wait a couple of weeks, I think it was March 5th or so, but that anniversary is coming up, 2-year anniversary, we shut everything down. Everything. We shut it down for public health reasons. Then we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited to get relief. The relief that came mostly went to rich people and rich companies, because they had lawyers and lobbyists that could figure it out and fill out the 30-page applications. Never got to the people who really needed it. So now the idea of coming in and saying we're going to give a tax credit for, even the earned income tax credit situation that they allowed ITIN filers to benefit from the state EITC, That was just so much too little, too late, too complicated. You know, we're already closed. So the biggest problem for government, the biggest lesson learned, because we're doing a complete top to bottom review of all of the federal and state relief in the comptroller's office. We've had 6 workshop meetings already. We're going to have another 6. And then we're going to put out a blockbuster of a report that says government failed. Government failed. Federal government and the state government, because they disconnected the relief from the pandemic. Just when people needed it, when everything was closed down, the government said for public health reasons, you've got to like shut down completely. We needed to connect the relief right then, and we didn't. And as a result, I said, we have lost 40,000 small businesses. Now, some of them will come, not those individual companies, but some small companies will come over the next year to fill in for that. But it is a colossal failure of state and federal government. And I don't mean to suggest that I'm mad at myself. I'm not. We did as good a job as we could. For example, extending the tax deadline and other things. But we just, we got overwhelmed by the pandemic. And it's not that people weren't well-intentioned.
Okay.
But they set up things like, I'll never forget, they set up business loans from the federal government that came through the Department of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And they set them up and awarded them, if you can believe it. They announced this is all going to be on a first come, first basis. You first come, whoever comes here first gets the money. So Montgomery County with 100,000 small businesses or something and 1 million residents got twice what Prince George's County got, with relatively the same number of small businesses and the same population. Was it racial animus? No, it was just incompetent government coming up and saying, if you can believe it, okay, guys, we have some money. Let's start the gold rush out to California. First come, first serve. So many businesses called me and said, God, we finally got our application accepted, but they told us they're giving all the money away.
But even in Montgomery County, it was the people who knew to navigate the system already that got the money, and those who didn't know how to navigate the system got left out.
Exactly. So, that's why every law firm in Montgomery County got paycheck protection plans.
Right.
But you guys didn't. So it's why I'm motivated to take the $6 billion and make sure it's used properly, as opposed to just once again becoming a feast for lobbyists and
sure, that would be great.
People that have good connections. But you guys can help out and feel free to communicate to your elected representatives, both at the county level and at the state level.
Okay. Sometimes we need some help on the right words to say, right? So we have a question.
They always say about me, I'm the only thing quiet about Franchot is the T at the end of my name. So try to be respectful, but this is an important issue, and the money's there. So you can count on me if you want some verification.
Okay.
But
we'll do that. We'll do that.
You need to really put your foot down and say, look, let's not keep repeating this problem where the people who don't need the relief get the money and the people who do need the relief don't get it.
All right.
That's the situation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a question from Kimberly Driggs, who has a construction firm. Kimberly, do you want to ask that directly, or do you want me to read it out? I think you can ask for it.
I can ask it directly.
Yeah.
Actually, as a small business in construction, we I'm involved with ASA Metro Washington, that's the Subcontractor Association. And we are noticing slow pay situations with construction contracts, and the small businesses are being completely crushed by not getting payments on time. It's taking 90 to 120 days to receive payment. It's messing up credit. It's messing up your relationships with your vendors. A lot of that. But what I'm hoping to see, and I was wondering how you feel about this, Comptroller Franchot, is to have payment transparency so that when subcontractors submit our payment, when we do our submittals, we can track when the prime gets paid, because we're being told all kinds of stuff that they haven't been paid. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to lose their business. It's just gotten really, really bad.
No, it's a great question. And I believe we're going to be announcing something very shortly about a portal. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm
next week, 1 week, we're going to, because we're just not going to accept that situation.
Right. It's been so difficult.
Yeah, no, I sympathize with that. And we are going to do something about it next week. I just am not permitted to lay out all the details, but you're going to be very happy because there is going to be a huge injection of transparency.
Wonderful.
And accountability.
Yes, that's what's needed. Thank you.
Yes, actually, if you, Kimberly, can send me your information, because maybe you can help us to test what we are going to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kimberly, thank you. Good question.
So the next question, Ernesto Chanona has his hand up. So Ernesto, you have a question.
Thank you, Carmen. So yeah, I guess the silver lining of the last 2 years in the pandemic, I think, has really been the surge and growth of the life sciences sector, and I can guarantee that there's a revolution in medicine that's coming down the pike as a result. We saw more investment into the industry in the first half of 2021 than the entire year of 2019. And that's because a lot of non-traditional investors were really tuned into the development of our processes and our products. And I apologize, I'm outdoors and there's a train coming. So if you have trouble hearing me, let me know. And Montgomery County is a huge part of that revolution in what will be healthcare for the next few decades, and it's an incredibly exciting time to be in biotechnology. One of the things that is a little known secret is that it's an incredibly fragmented industry. If you think of a Ford factory, and it's like an assembly line, and there's a group putting in the wheels and a group putting in the brakes and a group putting in the steering wheel. In life sciences, every one of those groups is a completely separate company. And some of them reside in Montgomery County, some of them reside in Prince George's County, and some of them reside in Frederick County, and some of them in Baltimore and in the surrounding counties. And I think that one of the biggest challenges that the industry faces is the lack of connectivity and awareness of each other here. Really, and what that really means is that instead of growing our supply chains locally, people are outsourcing the services to perhaps more popular firms in other states that have a larger biotechnology hub. And there's a lack of awareness of the industry at the local school level. I've given talks to the Montgomery County Public Schools, to the Frederick Public Schools. I'm part of a program here in Baltimore about what the sector means, because I think that this is a sector that's going to grow and provide a lot of jobs and going to revitalize the economy, and it accepts people from a high school degree to an associate's degree to a PhD. And so I guess what I wanted to really ask is, what are your thoughts of the industry? Is it something that you would prioritize? If so, what does that look like, perhaps, for you?
Well, I've always prioritized throughout my entire career, frankly. I've been in the legislature 20 years on the Appropriations Committee, dealt with a lot of these issues there, have been the last 16 years as your comptroller. And the problem right now with Montgomery County Life Sciences is that the county is out of kilter. You know, we've got a wonderful population. We've got, you know, I've lived here for 41 years, so I know of what I speak, and I represented Tacoma Park, People's Republic of Tacoma Park, in the legislature. So all I'm saying is the county has a abundance of good intentions and wishful thinking and a general absence of fiscal responsibility. And as a result, we competitively lose out to Virginia and DC for some of the very important components of life sciences. We have a big asset there as far as the 270 corridor and the crescent, the cybersecurity quantum crescent that they call it, going west to east in the lower part of the county and over to Prince George's, over to College Park. So we've got a tremendous asset that needs to be nurtured, but we're going to need a top to bottom review of state taxes because we're not particularly involved. I'm not suggesting cutting taxes to attract investors and businesses. I'm talking about making adjustments so that the state is viewed as in addition to having Hopkins and Maryland, the huge healthcare institutions that we have, just all aspects of life sciences, we want to clear away some of the brush that's there that's been built up by local regulations. So top to bottom review of state taxes, top to bottom review of local taxes, and most importantly, local regulations, which in Montgomery County, I'm a big fan of Montgomery County, but let's just say the county's a little bit full of themselves as far as how they toss their weight around on the permitting and regulatory process. And it's all, fine for the big guys. Amazon, we were willing to give them $6 or $7 billion in incentive to come to Montgomery County. But, you try to open a small business in Montgomery County and you better have a good lawyer because it's difficult. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to say, I think there's something holistic we need to do. It's not just focused, life sciences are important, but we've got cybersecurity and all sorts of different potential intersections between government and technology.
Sure.
And so I think what you're talking about is something a little more global. I'm just the comptroller, so I'll just defer somewhat to the legislature and the governor who will be struggling with those issues. But I do think that there's tremendous opportunity to change the narrative from Maryland being a kind of an old-fashioned, blue state on the East Coast and change it into something like, hey, Maryland really gets it as far as the life sciences. They understand fiscally and financially what needs to be done and what needs to be done as far as infrastructure. I mean, you just can't tolerate the kind of 270 and 495 congestion.
Right.
It's not good enough to say, oh, well, I don't really like cars or I don't like roads. I want trains, or something like that. You just can't get away with that. Yes, do we need more mass transit? Absolutely. But we also need to fix the kinds of concrete problems that businesses say, we're just not interested in coming right now to Montgomery County, for example. We'd rather stay here in Virginia. And that's something I think that requires a little top-down holistic approach. And I think that will happen down the road. But thank you. It's a very good question you brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to that point, there's a lot of other issues that are impinge on that. One is the ability to have a better broadband infrastructure and ability to have better communications and system for digital communication. And the other is Montgomery County needs to strengthen its ability to have educational institutions in it that foster that, and or collaborate better with neighboring counties. And so I think that those are things. And the other thing that seems to be also a holdup is affordable housing. So that's a big issue.
I think you should run for governor.
Thank you.
Sound great. Yeah, no, seriously, these are not limited to Montgomery or the Washington area. We need a regional approach, obviously, with Virginia and DC, and much more coordinated so that we're not, chopping each other's legs off.
Right.
But I think the entire state needs a cohesive package that it can be appealing to the rest of the country, so that people come and say, gee, I really think there's something there in Maryland. It's a state that, if not a go-to state for us, it's a state that we need to go and at least ask, because we're hearing some really cool things about their relationship with business, small businesses particularly.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate your time and being with us today. Thank you so much. And we really we enjoyed working with Adriana. She's been terrific, a terrific advocate for our small businesses. So thank you very much for having such a wonderful staff member. And we look forward to working with you in the future and having more conversations to help Maryland move forward and really be open for business.
Fabulous. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening. Take care.
All right.